drafts, a lot of people trying to fit in both Kane and Haaland. Is that crazy?
It's not crazy. It's doable. You can have a draft where, because I've tried, that you can get Haaland and you can get Kane and you can have Salah and you can also squeeze Trent in there as well. But the rest of the slots in your team have to be budget picks. Now, there's plenty of them. There's loads in the 5.5 million bracket, particularly in midfield, that work really nicely. There's a lot of 4.5 defenders who work brilliantly. You can have the rotating goalkeepers, particularly with Kasper Schmeichel leaving Leicester. Suddenly we've got 2 4.0 goalkeepers at Leicester. If you have them both, that's only costing you 8 million. So lots of flexibility. The problem with doing it is you have to make big sacrifices in terms of those mid-priced players. You can't have Gabriel Jesus in a team where you have Salah, Kane, Haaland and Trent. And you're going to want to have Jesus in your team. Jesus is the heaviest owned player in game week 1 history. We have never had a player that's been owned by over 72% of the game before. It's an obscene ownership. And the thing about the 3 million picks is you can't have him. So yes, you might have Salah and you might have Kane and you might have Haaland. But on Friday evening, when Jesus is playing Crystal Palace, you are going to have the absolute fear in you, because if he goes mad, you've not got him. And it doesn't matter how many premiums you have. If you miss out on those mid-price hauls, that's a problem.
Yeah, it does feel like you end up a bit top heavy almost, doesn't it, Jules? If you go with that, you're very much on the Kane and Salah train. And then the 8 million midfielders, it feels like, gives us a nice opportunity to tap into some of those big teams without needing to go for the big price players.
Yeah, completely. I think Gabriel Jesus is cheap. I have to be honest. I didn't want him at first because I just wanted a differential and not go with everybody else, because obviously you don't have the same points. But the more I watched him again against Sevilla, I thought he was amazing. Everything I hear from Arsenal and the training ground and the other players, I'm like, okay, the guy is in the form of his life. He's so happy. He's so confident. We've said many times that I know the Palace away is a tough game to start, but after that, up to the North London derby in game week 6, I think, or 5, it's a good start for Arsenal in terms of matches and opposition. So you could easily see him continuing the great form that he showed in pre-season. And I know it's only pre-season and friendlies, but still there were big games as well where Arteta played very strong teams and you could already see the patterns of play and how well Jesus has integrated in the team and his relationship already with the rest. So I got to the point where I thought, it's, again, you have to make room for him, or you have to find a way of getting him. And again, I think at that price, it's a really good price and it's a really good option to get.
I couldn't agree more. He has to be in your side at that price. He's got triple figures the last 3 seasons, Gabriel Jesus. That's when he's been rotated in and out at Man City. Now he's going to play every week at Arsenal. I think his ability to score big this season is there for everyone to see. In terms of mid-price midfielders, I'm going to throw a name at you. What about Marcus Rashford? He's in my side, Marcus Rashford. Now, hear me out. £6.5 million, and I know he had a difficult season last year, 63 points. But look at his history. I just talked about Gabriel Jesus scoring triple figures for 3 seasons running. The 2 seasons prior to last, he scored 174 and 177 points. The potential for Marcus Rashford to score big this year, I think, is there. And at 6.5 million, I think that's an absolute bargain. He's had a decent pre-season. I just think that's one that you can't afford to be without as well.
Have you seen enough from him in pre-season, Matt, to suggest, because for the past year, 18 months or so, he's admitted himself, he's not been himself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is. My only concern is that there's still plenty of time in the transfer window and that Man United are looking for reinforcements at the top end of the pitch. So there's going to be incomings, I would imagine, at Old Trafford. But to start the season at 6.5 million, I just think that Marcus Rashford, I've seen enough. Well, over his career, I know he had a difficult season last year, and over pre-season, suggests that he will be in my team come the first day.
Jules, you told us on the opening pod that you had Anthony Martial as one of your forwards. Have you stuck with him? Is he still in there?
Yeah, he's still in there. I've been really impressed. I have to say, going forward by what United have done, again, it's only pre-season and, come the Brighton game, it might be very different at the weekend. However, I think that if there's one thing that Ten Hag does really well is attacking and going forward and making the best of the players that he has, whether that's Martial, Rashford, who we mentioned with Sam in the last show as well, Sancho. I think Sancho can have quite a similar narrative to Rashford as well, and the price is decent. I think 7 million for Martial is a really good price, because what we saw in pre-season and if you think about it, Martial is a perfect player for Ten Hag. Okay, they might sign another striker or Cristiano might end up playing, I don't know. But Martial presses, he runs, he's an intelligent guy, he's versatile. There's that fluidity that Ten Hag wants going, in his attacking position that Martial, provides really. And when you see in preseason, some of the goals they scored, Martial was giving the assist or he was scoring, he was involved in the build-up, but he was also at the finishing. And if you get that confidence back to Martial, the talent has always been there. Remember his first season at the club and in the Premier League. The problem, he lost a bit himself, in the middle, but I think Ten Hag can easily revive his career. So I want to believe in him. And you know what? He's from Paris, obviously like me, but he's not one of my buddies. He's not one of my boys. So this one is purely made on, on what I see and not just on if I love him or not.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up.
I'm just
and
saying,
Sam,
not like the others. That's what I mean.
Sam, I've just realised, actually, you picked and you tipped Marcus Rashford to be your differential, didn't you, the other week?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, he was my differential for the season. And I think I fully agree with everything Matt's just said. I think this could be a really good season for him. And I think you can't underestimate the impact that the World Cup has as well. Of course, these players are going to want to go to the World Cup with England. So making a good start to the Premier League season with their clubs is going to be so important, particularly with players like Rashford and Sancho. They're going to want to be part of Gareth Southgate's World Cup squad. And I think all of that plays in. And this is why the 3 teams are doable, because you look at players like Martial, Rashford, Sancho at Manchester United. These are big club investments. Manchester United, you have to forget about Manchester United last season and just look at them as a fresh slate with the players that they have under a new manager, because this is going to be a very different season for them. And you can easily be blindsided by looking at the underlying stats from the 21-22 campaign, where Manchester United just weren't Manchester United. They weren't performing in the way that we would expect them to as Premier League fans or FPL managers alike. I think going into the season, Rashford will have one of the best seasons of his career.
It's a gamble. Man United.
Oh, that's strong.
It's a big statement. That is a big statement. I think Man United are a gamble. I think last year I just didn't trust Man United. I just didn't trust any of their players. I was struggling to put them into my team because you just didn't know what you were going to get from them. But pre-season, it has looked fresh. It's looked different. And there's someone at the back that I've gone with as well. Is Diogo Dallow. His ownership is very low. You're talking about differentials. I think he's a 4.7% ownership. And at £4.5 million, you're looking at a premium team, an attacking defender, potential to get attacking returns. So I've gone with Dallow and Rashford actually from United so far.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I've got Dallow in my team at the moment as it stands too, because 4.5 million, he is an enabler. Any other enablers? Who have you got in your defence, Jules, that is enabling you to free up funds for elsewhere?
So I've got Nathan Patterson at Everton. Okay, so hear me out.
I like this one, Jules. I'm with you on this.
And also, I'd like to point out that I got a couple of tweets saying, why have you not picked out Nathan Patterson when we went through positionally last week? So this is yours and his chance to shine, Jules. Tell us why we should have him.
No, I watched them the other day and they played with a back three, which I think Frank Lampard has changed slightly through the preseason to be a bit more solid defensively, and that suits Patterson even more because he's an attacking. He's maybe more of a wing back than a full back, really, with the qualities that he has. But I have to say, he looked good. I don't really trust Lampard or Everton. I'm not sure they're gonna have a good season, but I think at 4 million, you go for it. He's gonna start 100%, probably in a back five, which is good for him because obviously there should be more attacking opportunities for him to provide crosses and get assists maybe, and certainly defensively you defend better usually as a 5 than as a 4, or you should certainly. So I like what I saw. So I went, you know what, 4 million, a bit like Nico Williams at Forest. Go for it, see what happens. But if he plays regularly, and I believe he will, he's a very talented kid. If he stays fit, which again he should at his age, I think this one is not much of a risk, really. So let's go for it. I think he's got the potential to have a really good season.
Do you know he's played 70% of their preseason minutes, Nathan Patterson? And in that time, he's got a couple of assists as well from that slot. So he is making the game time in preseason. He has clearly got Lampard's buy-in going into the campaign. Difficult start to the season for them in terms of their game week 1 fixture, but then after that they have got some relatively nice fixtures, and as Jules says, he is the perfect price point, isn't he? We all love a 4.9 million defender because we can sit them on our bench during the difficult games, we can bring them on, they can come off the bench if we needed, if one of our premiums misses out for whatever reason. So for me, he's the perfect enabler. Like Nico Williams at Nottingham Forest, when he was at Liverpool, we were all kind of going, please get yourself a move away this season as FPL managers. 4.0, perfect if you're going to start. He played 90 minutes in Forest's last pre-season friendly, and usually the last one is the one that I kind of look to because that sets up where you think the team is going to be going into game week 1. So the fact that he played, it does mean that we've got 2 potentially starting 4.0 defenders this year, and if you want to save the budget to up your premium picks, then going in with both of those to start the season is perfect.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to remember, isn't it? Often when we spend 4 million on a defender, they're not necessarily going to start. When you're picking your squad, you are picking players to also sit on your bench. So you just want someone that's going to play so that if they come off the bench, they get you some points, but they don't necessarily have to start for you every week. Matt, what about you in terms of midfield, the cheaper midfielders, or is Rashford your cheapest midfielder as it stands?
No, Andreas Pereira is my cheapest midfield player. I think a lot of people have gone down this route. I think when you're looking for budget players, you tend to go towards the promoted teams and you're not quite sure what they're going to do when they get into the Premier League. Andreas Pereira is a Man United player and he's priced as a Man United midfielder, really, because they weren't expecting him to play too much at Man United, expecting him maybe to even leave the country and play elsewhere. So here he is, now playing as a number 10 in an advanced role for Fulham. I think he's a great bench option at 4.5 million. So Andreas Pereira's in my team. The other promoted sides, and I'm looking up top now, I'm looking at Brennan Johnson at Nottingham Forest. I know Nico Williams is a really good budget defender at £4 million. He's £6 million, Brennan Johnson, but he got 16 goals and 16 assists in the Championship last year. He's £6 million as a striker. So he's someone that I will be keeping an eye on. And the other one who is in my team at the moment is Mitrovic. Now, I know last time he came into the Premier League, I know it's a big call. Last time he came into the Premier League, he didn't get many minutes. Scott Parker, clearly there was an issue with Alexander Mitrovic and he didn't play him. He didn't play him regularly. Mitrovic is someone that needs to be playing week in, week out, I think for his fitness levels as well. So he got 63 points last time he was in the Premier League. The time before that, he got 134. He got 11 goals and 4 assists in season 18-19. So I think Mitrovic, playing every week, can score good points this season. So at the moment, he's in my side. I'm debating whether to go with Alvarez of City because he's the same price. Brennan Johnson's also in my thinking at $500,000 cheaper. But Mitrovic, Pereira and Nico Williams are the 3 players, my sort of budget players, if you like, from the promoted sides.
Don't overlook Aston Villa, though, because I think we all automatically start looking at the promoted teams for the budget picks because they tend to come into the game that little bit cheaper. And all of the ones you've just reeled off, I think, are brilliant picks, particularly Pereira. I mean, he is the most heavily owned midfielder priced under 12 million in the game right now. And it's no surprising given his price tag. But I'm looking at Aston Villa thinking there's a really nice couple of budget enablers there. In midfield, you've got Leon Bailey, who's in my team. And he's the one I took for Grealish after the Community Shield. He's got 3 goals and 2 assists in pre-season. The comments that Gerrard makes about him, and I quoted him last time, he is in really, really good form. And I think had he stayed fit, we would have seen this from Bailey last season as well. But even up top, we've got a budget enabler there too in Archer. Now, he scored twice in pre-season for Villa. I'm not for a minute suggesting he's going to get loads of game time. And he is maybe one of these budget enablers where you don't necessarily get the regular starts because they've got Ings and Watkins in that position too. But if he's going to come on with the new 5 sub rule and get minutes in every game, then having someone like Archer in your third forward slot could be really useful for budget reasons.
In terms of Aston Villa, I've actually got Matty Cash in the team at £5 million. Talk about an attacking defender, someone who can get a goal. I think got 4 goals last season. He's actually in my team. Same price. The other fullback is Lucadinha and he takes set pieces. So I'm a little bit torn, but I know Matty Cash does offer you a real goal threat. So at the moment, I have got Matty Cash in the team.
Okay, before we move on, it feels like we could talk about every team here because it is the final podcast before the season start. But I just wanted to find out what you're doing with that third forward slot. Sam, you've just mentioned Cameron Archer there, but it sounds like most managers, the most common double up top seems to be Jesus plus Kane or Haaland. So Matt, firstly, you're on Mitrovic and that's not going to change, or maybe it is?
No, that may change. That may change. It's definitely Jesus and Haaland to start. And then my third striker is still up for debate. I've got Mitrovic, Alvarez at Man City, Brennan Johnson, and now Sam's sort of thrown Cameron Archer into the mix as well. So he's now into my thinking.
That's the problem with this podcast. Too many options, some people might say. Jules, your third slot. I don't think you've said who it's going to be yet. Have you revealed this and I've missed it?
Yeah, Anthony Martial. We said Jesus and
I'm losing
and
the plot. You can tell I've talked too much FPL.
About Martial, Kelly.
I know. I was listening. I've just got so many names and trying to remember who said what. Sorry. So Martial. And I'm guessing he's pretty set. So your forwards must be set because you've had him from the beginning.
Yeah, I like those three. I believe in them. I think Martial, who's owned by 6.9% of the managers, which, by the way, if you look at ownership of those strikers in the category, there's only Jesus, Haaland, Kane, Darwin ahead of him. So I think it's quite popular still, even if he's under 10% ownership. So yeah, I want to believe in that front three. It's a good front three, I think.
I quite like that front three, actually. Also, you've got strikers from Spurs, Arsenal and Manchester United.
That's the vision. Don't double up attacking positions. I'm telling you, that's for the season.
No, but also a lot of people will have a third striker maybe from a team that isn't going to be challenging for the top 4, top 6, whereas you've potentially got 3 strikers playing for top 6 teams that should be playing week in, week out. At the moment, I think I've got Greenwood from Leeds just because I haven't got enough budget, but I know I need to change that. Sam, I'm not going to try and guess your third striker because you're probably also going to tell me you've said it and I've not been listening.
No, I haven't, because this is the spot where I'm really not decided at all. So Cameron Archer is in my thinking, but I've already got Leon Bailey and Matt Cash in my team, so I'm a bit unsure about trebling up on Aston Villa. I've got Greenwood currently in my draft, but I would prefer somebody who was going to regularly start. My current draft, I've got 1.5 million in the bank, so I can afford to invest slightly more heavily in that third spot. I don't know how this has happened. Well, I do. It's because I took Grealish out for Leon Bailey and then I changed my goalkeeper strategy. So I am kind of a bit undecided on it. I do like Brennan Johnson and I am tempted to have a little bit of a swing on him for the early part of the season because, one of these promoted clubs will come up and hit the ground running. So he is one that I am kind of toying with the idea of as well.
I never thought I'd see the day that Sam has got, hold on, let me confirm this. You've got more Aston Villa players in your team and your squad than Spurs players. Is that right?
That is right. I just have the one Spurs player.
No way.
I know.
No way.
You see, you have to put your loyalties aside when it comes to FPL, don't you? And you have to go in with the best team that you can create. And for me, the best team I can create would have Son and Kane in it. But there is absolutely no way I can budget for both of those guys. So sacrifices have been made and just one Spurs player.
Just quickly as well, you mentioned that you've got 1.5 million in the bank. Would you recommend managers keep some money in the bank just so they've got a little bit of flexibility after game week 1 or even in a few game weeks' time, just to make any moves that they might need to make if they've missed players in the opening weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not necessarily 1.5 million. That feels a little bit excessive. But I do like to keep 0.5 simply because you will have players. FPL managers, we're a fickle bunch. We go into the season and we go, yes, I've got this amazing team. Game week 1 happens and everyone goes, I don't want this player anymore. And suddenly you get a mass exodus because they've not necessarily returned in that one opening fixture that you were anticipating that they would. That means you might then lose 0.1 in value because they've been massively transferred out. And the player that you want to target might be massively targeted by everyone else because, like they've got a hat trick in game week 1. And they've gone up by 0.1. Suddenly you're 0.2 away from being able to afford this player. And that's really frustrating because then you've got to take a -4. You've got to change up another position in your pitch, which you might not want to do. If you've got 0.5 in the bank, then you've got the ability to just move between those players and you buy yourself a little bit of time and flexibility.
Yeah, that's what I always try and do. And then I always end up having fear and thinking, I can get a better player with that 0.5. But yeah, that is a very sensible option if you do want to be sensible.